All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your question, go ahead and post it. If you're on like a regular laptop or computer, desktop, or anything like that, it's going to be on the right-hand side. Should be where you can post your question. If you are on a mobile device, it's going to be below the video where you post your questions. Or if you're on a smaller screen, it pushes the chat window below. So we'll go ahead and get started here. James H says, a distance fixed course for level 1, do I complete all of the 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 in the same day? How many days a week should I complete each level? So if you go to the introduction of the course, Clay talks about all of that, but essentially the way that the course is laid out, you do the week 1 course. It's basically 3 days. There's 3 range sessions. Now you could do it all in one day, but honestly, it's going to be better if you spread it out over 3 days. So one day is going to be a range session, or if you have to do it at home, that's fine too. But hopefully where you're hitting at something, we also have a home modifications section in there. So if you're unable to go to the range right now, which I know a lot of places, courses are closed, and I hear courses are starting to open up in a lot of places as well, but driving ranges would be included in that. So if you're in a position or you just would rather work on this at home, you have a setup at home where you can do it, we have a section where you can do that. So anyway, there's one outdoor course, or there's one outdoor session followed by another outdoor session, and then followed by an indoor session. The outdoor sessions couldn't be done indoors with the indoor modifications that we talked about. So that's 3 sessions, and they're all about, it's 20 minutes. We call it the 20-minute distance fix because basically it's 20 swings with a minute between every swing, right? So that's 20 minutes. But in actuality, what it takes you to do it is probably going to be more like 30 minutes. By the time that you warm up, you take 15, 20 swings and warm up, and then go through the course. A lot of times you're not taking exactly a minute. You might be taking a little bit more. But we recommend that you take at least a minute between every swing, so that way you're replenishing yourself. You're going to get a lot more out of it if you do that. So don't just try to blast through it 30 seconds between every swing, or don't try to machine gun the shots out there, because you're not going to get as much out of it if you do that. It's going to be hard to give 100%. You're going to be real tired if you do that. So I recommend doing it over 3 days. And so that's week 1, and then you go to week 2, same thing for every single one. Now the quick start, if you do the quick start as well, you can do that within the week 1, right? So there's a quick start section that's in that's after the intro. If you do that quick start, it's kind of a culmination of a lot of the drills that are in the course. So I recommend you do that to kind of get your baseline of where you're at. And then, so that would make 4 sessions for week 1, 3 sessions for week 2, and then 3 sessions for week 3. And then I would just go through it all again. And if you go through it again, if you want to get more distance, you can skip the quick start. You've already done that, and just redo the week 1 drills and the week 2 drills and week 3 drills. Essentially, I just keep doing it until you plateau and you just don't get anywhere with it. And at that point, you may say, hey, I'm really happy with my distance and my speed right now. And if you're not, then I would look into working with an instructor to make sure that you are getting everything you can out of it. Because maybe you're not quite doing, feel isn't always real, right? So maybe you're not quite doing exactly what you think you are, and you may get help from an instructor to do that. So we offer unlimited swing reviews. And if you're interested in doing that, what I'd recommend doing is click that Get a Review button at the top of the page there. That will take you to the swing review page. If you're just curious about what it's all about, I'd recommend going there, check it out. There's an example of what a swing review is like. So if you click that and then go work through there. Unfortunately, we have a limited number of students that we can work with. So right now, I'm not sure if anybody has any spots available. But you go check. So we have 3 instructors that do the swing reviews, myself, Robin, and then our new instructor, Chris Hunsaker, who's doing swing reviews as well. There's opportunity there. We try to open up spots as much as we can, but like I said, there's a limited number of students that we can work with. We got to sleep, sometime, right? So make sure that you join the waiting list if you are interested and there aren't any spots available. If spots are available, grab your spot. Let's get started. But if not, make sure that you join that waiting list, because what happens is that whenever we open up spots, we'll send an email blast out to everyone that's on that waiting list. If you're not on that waiting list, you will not get notified. So we'll send it out to the waiting list. If it sells out to the waiting list, which it often does, I believe I can't even remember the last time it didn't sell out to the waiting list. So it usually sells out to the waiting list. If it doesn't, then we'll send an email out to everybody, letting people know, hey, we got some spots available. But typically it's just going to be the waiting list. So if you don't join that waiting list, then you may never be notified whenever we open up spots. And you may just have to get lucky and be on the page sometime when suddenly there's a spot available. So make sure that you join that waiting list. So David S. says, talk about the phrase hips rotate like a merry-go-round and the shoulders like a Ferris wheel, with the shoulders being perpendicular to the ground and the hips open at impact. The side bend. I tend to turn my shoulders more while trying to avoid back pain from a side bend. I understand Tiger Woods is also trying to avoid a big bend. So yeah, for basically, you want to be able to rotate the body. A lot of the back pain is coming from the hips not rotating properly. So that's really what that comes down to. So the hips, the more level they can turn and the more perpendicular your shoulders can turn, the easier it's going to be on your back. That's not your lower back that's doing that. That's your upper back that's doing that. So your upper back curves, right? Your lower back doesn't. It's stable. So if you're in a position where you're tilting your hips, right? Your hips are not are tilted like this when you're coming through contact, and you're bumping your hips out. That's putting pressure on your back. If your hips are rotating like this and you're turning and you're able to turn while keeping your shoulders more on a perpendicular to the ground, that's actually less stress on your back. So that's why you see a lot of the best players doing it is it that way. Now, are you capable of having that kind of side bend? Not necessarily. Most people probably aren't. But the closer you can get to that, the better off you're going to be. So there's a great drill or a great kind of feeling that you can do to help you do that. So when I mean rotate like a merry-go-round, I don't know if I have something that I could kind of show this more very easily with. All right, so let's think about it in a sense of a club. So let's pretend that this club is sitting on a merry-go-round. It would be rotating like this, right? Parallel with the ground. That's where it'd be rotating with. That's how we want our hips to rotate. We don't want ours to be rotating like that or like this, right? We want them to be rotating pretty level with the ground would be ideal. That's what's going to allow them to rotate the most. Typically, when people try to rotate their hips, they do that. I'm guilty of it myself. I tend to want to go like that when I feel like this feels like rotation, but it actually isn't rotation. This is rotation. If you're rotating your hips like that, that's rotation. So you want to feel like your hips are rotating more like a merry-go-round. A Ferris wheel. So if you imagine, if everyone knows what a Ferris wheel is, if you've been to London or Orlando, we have a big Ferris wheel downtown as well, right? So that would be rotating like this. So in order to do that, what you would need to do is have side bend. So here's a great drill to kind of help you understand how to get into this position. One, get in your normal address position here. And this is just ideal, like what the best ball strikers, the most efficient ball strikers out there. So if you look at someone like Cameron Champ, you do have to be flexible to get into this extreme kind of position. But it doesn't mean that you can't get into a less extreme position and be able to be in an awesome position at impact to really improve your ball striking. Because here's what most people are doing when they're coming into contact. They look more like this, right? They look more like standing up, right? So standing up, they look more like they're coming through. The shoulders are very, very level. It's flipping through contact, or it's over the top through contact. The hips are typically tilted like this. We'll see like this, or it's a hip thrust. It's typically a tilt like this, and that is hard on your back. When your hips are tilted like that, that's tough on your back because you have to pull back and away from the golf ball. That's putting pressure on your lower back. The hips being level and having side bend, that means you're in balance, and there's the pressure on your back is a lot different when you're doing that. So the way that Tiger might be swinging right now, or the way that he's trying to do that, and I'm not really familiar with exactly what Tiger's trying to do right now, but also understand you're not Tiger, and you're not hitting 1,000 golf balls a day, right? The plight of professional players is going to be way different than your weekend golfer, or even your golfer that plays every single day, right? Because you're not playing every single day and also hitting 1,000 golf balls, right? You're playing every single day and probably hitting maybe a few golf balls, right? So if you're someone who's hitting 1,000 golf balls and playing 18 holes every day, 9 holes every day, okay, then your plight might be very similar to that of a professional player, but that is a very, very small number of people, very, very small. So understand that when tour players are talking about trying to stay injury-free and things like that, you have to think about the amount of repetition that they are doing. It's way more than most golfers are doing. Way more. It's not even close. So keep that in mind whenever you're thinking about these kinds of things. So anyway, going back to that, the easiest way to kind of help you feel this position, all you got to do is get in your address position, take the club, put it over your trail shoulder. So if you're right-handed, it's going to be your right shoulder. Left-handed, it'll be your left shoulder. So address position, club on your trail shoulder, and you're just bending at the elbows to make that happen. All right? That's all you're doing. You're keeping your upper arms to your side here, just like you would in the address. They're at your side. Normal address position, pick that club, put it over your right shoulder. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate my hips as much as I possibly can. So like I said, this is everything you got. This is the maximum best possible position you could be in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate my hips as much as I possibly can. So if someone who's really flexible, they may be able to get their hips pointing all the way to the target. But my leg, I have internal rotation limitation in my trail leg. Or my lead leg, both legs actually. I can only rotate, internal rotation wise, about 20 degrees. I have my foot angled out. You can't see it, but I have my foot angled out. And as I turn, I'm actually turning my foot out as well. So let me angle this down a little bit so you can see that. So there I am, my address position, normal address position. I'm going to take the club. I'm going to put it on my right shoulder. I'm going to turn my hips as much as I possibly can. So you see my heel, my trail heel is coming off the ground, and my foot is turning out, right? So that's what you're going to see at most tour players. What you're going to see at impact is something like this, something very similar to this. So you're going to see the heel starting to come off the ground. You're going to see the front of the foot, starting to open up as they're coming in. They're going to be more in the heel as they're coming up. So, if it's a player who's hitting their driver, they might have this lead foot even floating off the ground a little bit. But I'm just talking, normal impact position. Let's say that this is a 7-iron impact position. You're going to see something basically like this to the extreme, right? So hips open as much as possible. You see my hips are roughly open 65, maybe 70 degrees. Socket to socket, probably not quite that much. Maybe about 55 degrees, 60 degrees. All right, so now from this position here, I'm going to try to bend into my side here to get my shoulders perpendicular to the ground. So I've rotated my hips as much as I possibly can. My hips are level. They're rotated like a merry-go-round, right? And my shoulders, I'm going to try to get it to where they'd be rotating like a Ferris wheel. So if I do that, you can't see this, but I'm pushing my backside into that wall behind me. And if I do, that's as much as I can do. And I need to keep my elbow ahead. Don't put your elbow back here. Put your elbow ahead like this. All right. So now what I would do is I just take that club and put it right on the ground back behind where the golf ball was. Now this is be like extreme, crazy amount of forward shaft lean position. Tons of forward shaft lean. This is, if you look at the Top Speed Golf system here, my compression line, all in a straight line there, slightly angled away from the target. My hips are probably about 60 degrees open, something like that here at impact. My shoulders, we'll see from the down the line, are going to be roughly slightly open, but slightly closed off. My chest is going to be opened up, right? My heel's starting to come off the ground, right? I have tons of forward shaft lean here at contact. and I've turned all the way into the golf ball, right? So this is just the best I could possibly do. Now, if I go from this angle, same thing. I'm in my address position. I'm going to take that club. I'm going to put it up on my shoulder here. I'm going to rotate my hips as much as I possibly can. I'm going to feel like I don't want to feel like I'm doing that. I want to feel like I'm rotating my hips very level as much as I can. So like like a merry-go-round, right? So you can see my lead foot is opening up. My trail heel is coming off the ground. Maybe you can't see my trail heel. And then from there, I'm going to keep my elbows to my side here. I'm going to try to I'm going to be pushing my backside out a little bit. And I'm going to be trying to get my shoulders more vertical to the ground. I take that club, put it back behind the golf ball. That's where I'd want to be at impact. That's where you see players like Justin Thomas, right? Cameron Champ, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka. So that's the kind of position that you're seeing. So it's not literally like there is some tilt there. You can see my shoulders were not straight up and down vertical like a merry-go-round, but most people are, or like a Ferris wheel, most people are rotating their shoulders like that through contact, very, very level through contact. You need to have your shoulders, the shoulders working more vertically as you're coming through. So that's what the best ball strikers are doing. Now, you may not be able to physically do that, but that's what the best are doing. All right. So Don R says, hi Q, I'm having trouble getting the straight line release. If I take half swings or slow motion swings without a ball, I can hit the straight line release positions. But as soon as I'm trying to hit a ball, my wrists roll over extremely hard because hips and shoulders stop turning through impact. Anything else I should be trying? So Don, this is very normal. I see this all the time. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at your practice swing, and I want you to check some things. And I imagine this is what you're going to see. Almost always when people are working on the straight line release and they're able to get it in a practice swing, what you're going to see is that club face is going to be wide open at impact. That's what you're going to see. You'll see that club releasing out in front, but you're going to see when you're coming into contact that face is wide open. So you can't quite see that here, but you'll see that face is wide open instead of more like that. That's because you don't know how to square the face when you're getting that club to release, when you get your hands working more around your body and that club releasing out in front. So you need to get your impact conditions, your theoretical impact conditions good with your practice swing before you can expect to do it with the golf ball there. So here's how you check those things. There's 4 things you want to check, okay, on your practice swing. And if you're not seeing them on your practice swing, then you need to change the way that you're coming into impact, the way your hands move, whatever it might be, to be able to make that happen. All right. So number 1 is going to be if your face is square. That's typically the thing that we see, is that the face is not square when you're coming into the golf ball. So the way that you would check that is you just look on video. So hopefully you have a slow motion camera. If you're not, I'll show you how you may be able to do that. But hopefully you can look at contact. If you're looking from a face-on view, this is what my face looks like at address, right? If you see this at impact, you can see any of the face. That means that the face is open. You shouldn't be able to see the face at all if you're looking from a side-on view. Not very much at all. So if you're seeing a large part of the face there, now things are going to be moving very fast, so it might be difficult to see. You might even be able to see this from down the line. Typically, it's pretty easy with a driver to be able to see it, but with irons, it can be a little bit tougher because it's just difficult to see. Now, if your camera can't pick that up, that's completely fine. What's moving slower is your hand. So your lead hand can be an indication of if the face is open or closed or not. So if you watch here, if I have kind of a neutral or basically a weak grip, I put my hand right on top of the grip here. Right, and I turn my hand that way, the face is open. I turn my hand that way, the face is closed. Right, so if you look at address and you can see, let's do a neutral grip. All right, so if you look at me at address, you can see 2 knuckles here, right? You can see 2 knuckles. It's also a lot easier if you have a glove on, because then you can see, okay, I can see this much of the glove logo, right? The emblem on the glove. I can see that much of it. So it's typically easier to see that if you're not using a glove. Then count your knuckles on your hand. So I can see 2 knuckles on my hand at address. Now, if I'm coming into contact, and now all of a sudden you can see 3 knuckles or more of my knuckles or more of the back of my hand here, more of the emblem, that's an indication that that face is open, right? So what do we need to do with that straight line release when we're coming into contact? We need to rotate that face down, and that's going to come from one, being my lead wrist rotating like this. So that's called wrist supination, where it's outward rotation of the wrist. And then it's also going to be a little bit of bowing in the wrist. So that's what closes the face, this right here. So that's, if we look at this right here, if I twist, if I do that rotation of my wrist and also the bowing, which is called wrist flexion of the wrist, that's this right here, that will close the face. So that's what you need to feel more when you're coming into contact. You need to feel like you're releasing that club out in front, but you're also turning that handle down as you're coming through contact and squaring up that face. So I'd work on that, trying to get that handle turning down, get that feeling of that handle turning as you're coming through. And also it's going to be the trail wrist, right? So we need the trail wrist to be more in a bent back position, right? So if I have the club like this and I want to close it, I'm going to turn my wrist back to make that happen, right? So that's called wrist extension. That's going to also close the face. They need to be working together, both hands, to make that happen. You can't have one wrist doing this and then another wrist doing that, right? You got to have both wrists kind of working together to square that face and release it out in front. So that's the first thing I would check, is look at the club face. If that looks good, then I would look at your ground contact. This is also seen from face on. So the face on view is this view right here, where you're looking straight at me here. So what I would do is I would come down, look at your swing at impact and see where you're striking the ground. Are you striking the ground about where the golf ball would be? If you're hitting the ground way back here or not hitting the ground at all, this is what I see all the time. People do practice swings and they're swinging a foot above the ground. That's not the same as hitting a golf ball, right? You got to understand, whenever you have that golf ball in front of you, what you're trying to do is you're trying to hit a straight shot. You're trying to hit the ball at a target. So your body is going to associate itself or to situate itself in a way that allows you to do that. So in your practice swing, you're leaving that face open, or maybe you're swinging 6 inches above the ground. Well, if you had the face open, you would hit the ball a mile to the right if you're right-handed. If you were swinging 6 inches above the ground, you would just miss the golf ball, so you wouldn't achieve your goal, right? So we have to factor those things in. Now, when you add the golf ball, intuitively, you're just not going to let yourself swing through and miss the golf ball, right? You're going to try and go down there and get it. And when you do that, you're going to make compensations in your swing to allow you to do that. That may not be the best motion to make that happen, but it's better than missing the golf ball, right? So check your ground contact. So if you're coming in and you're seeing you're hitting the ground before the golf ball, then you need to feel like you're getting more forward and hitting the ground ahead. If you're hitting the ground too far after the golf ball, then you need to maybe feel like your head is more behind the golf ball as you're coming in, so you can strike the ground a little bit sooner. If you're not hitting the ground at all, then you need to get down and get that club to hit the ground. So that's number 2. So number 1, face square. Number 2, ground contact, hitting that ground about where the golf ball is. Number 3 is going to be swing plane. So the next 2 are going to be ones that you're going to look at from down the line. So down the line is going to be right down your toe line, right? So this is really, really important when you're checking swing plane. You can't have the camera down your target line, which would be like way over here, right? That's not down my toe line. That's down the outlet there. We need to have that looking down my toe line. We can't have it to where it's back behind my heels either, because it's going to change the perspective of what you're seeing. So you need to have that working right down your toe line. That's going to be the best place to put it. The easiest way to do that is just to take a club or alignment stick, place it on the ground, line up the camera directly with that, and then when you go to line up to the ball, just have your toes up there close to that. Basically, you want your hands hanging straight down on top of that. If you were to drop something from your hands, it would land right on top of that club or alignment stick. That's going to give you the perfect perspective. Get far away enough to where you and the club stay in the frame throughout the entire swing. If you're right here, you're too close. I can't actually get far away enough because this room isn't big enough. I'm only 5 feet away from the camera here. So you need to have that camera far away enough to where you and the club stay in the frame as much as possible, as much as you can. And then also you want to be at about waist level. So this camera is actually at about eye level. You want to have it about waist level and then far away enough. So that's really, really important for the camera to be able to see this properly. So next, what you're going to do is you're going to take the swing and then you're going to pause it about where that impact would be. So about where you're coming in, where impact would be, you pause it, and then you're going to draw a line along the shaft there. And then what you can do is you can rewind that and see where that club is coming down in relationship to that line. If you're coming down right on that line, that means that you are on plane. If you are swinging down and you're above that line, so let's say that line's about right here. If you're swinging down and it's more like this, you're above that line, you're swinging more like this, you're under that line. So you may need to adjust your feel. Okay, now I'm going to get that straight line release. But if you're swinging too much under the line, then you may need to feel like you're swinging over the top and releasing that club out in front. So it's a constant adjustment to get to where you're getting that club on plane and you're nailing these 4 pieces. The last piece is strike location. So what I would recommend doing to see where your strike location is from down the line, what you'll do is you'll just take a crosshairs on your analyzation app, such as V1 Golf or any other app you want to use, and just put a crosshairs where the golf ball would be. And then take the club down to impact and see if you are, it just needs to be reasonably close, right? If it's a little bit toward the toe or the heel, that's fine. But we need to make sure that you're getting the club on the golf ball. You can't have the crosshairs right here and then you're swinging out here or out here. You need to be getting the center of the face pretty close to that crosshairs. And if you're not, then you may need to feel like you're coming in and then reaching out a little bit. If you're hitting it in the toe, you may need to feel like you're coming down and you're getting down and getting that strike more in the heel. Or if you're striking it in the toe, you may need to feel like you are pulling. Or sorry, if you're striking it on the toe, you may need to feel like you're reaching out more. If you're striking in the heel, you may need to feel like you're pulling in more as you're coming through contact. So these are all things you want to look at. That's how you get it to where you're able to do it in a normal swing. All right, so Robert D says, I have heard instructors say that the tempo of the full swing should be nearly the same for all clubs. If we could measure Clay's hand speed, not club head speed, for a typical 9-iron, 5-iron, and driver, would the number be close to the same? How does the swing tempo change with the length of the club? Typically, your driver swing, it really depends on the player. But typically your driver swing is going to be a little bit more aggressive, so your hands may move a little bit faster with that club. So keep that in mind. And also the longer the implement, the harder it is to make the hands go. It's going to slow down the hands a little bit. So that's not really a good measure of somebody's tempo. I would say, your tempo is really the difference between your backswing and your downswing. And what you find with the best tour players is going to be a 3-to-1 tempo. That's typically what you're going to see, somewhere 2.7 to 3-to-1. So basically, if you imagine if the backswing takes 1 second, then the downswing should take about 1/3 of a second. And that's typically what you see. And I think that too many people work on tempo too much. They work on trying to get the timing of their swing just right, when in reality, what they really need to work on is making sure that they get a full shoulder turn, right? And then they come around they keep the body moving and come all the way around into a full finish. If you do that, I found that your tempo will be perfect automatically. You'll have that perfect tempo right away. So that's really what I would recommend working on, is actually having that full backswing. Because people who cut their swing short, they rush the downswing because they feel like they have to, right? If you get a nice full backswing, you're going to feel like you have all the time in the world to get everything to where it lines up and you can come down and hit the ball the way that you want to. So make sure that you get that full shoulder turn. If you're getting that full shoulder turn and you're coming all the way around into the full finish, you're going to most likely have that great tempo. So that's what I'd be looking at doing and making sure that you're doing those things correctly. So Thomas O says, hi Q, I'm having trouble with the move. It feels like I'm dipping to the right, trying to get under the elbow plane, and I seem to get my wrist for lag at the same time. I twist the club to close the face. Should my wrist set that early? Let me read that again. Feels like I'm dipping to the right, trying to get under the elbow plane. And I seem to get my wrist for lag at the same, I seem to set my wrist for lag at the same time. I twist the club face to close it. Should my wrist set that early? So I guess I'm having a little bit of trouble visualizing exactly what's going on. So basically, let's understand what gives you the appearance of lag. And this may help you to understand exactly what's going on. So shallowing out the club gives you the appearance of more lag. So here's how you get that sharp angle of lag. So one is from the thumbs up position. So this is the setting of the wrist that you're talking about. That's that thumbs up. So if I have this club straight up and down and I do a thumbs up, that's going to be about 20 degrees, right? That's about the most that I could possibly get is here, that's 90, there's 20 degrees less. That's about the most that I'm going to be able to get. That's everybody. Nobody can turn their wrist to where it's like that, right? Unless they're holding the club like that. So if you have a proper grip, that's about the best that you're going to do is about 20 degrees. You can cup your wrist maybe and get a little bit more, but if you're keeping that wrist relatively flat there, you're not going to get more than that, all right? The next piece that's going to give you that appearance of lag is the shallowing of the club, which is what you're doing in the move course. So if I have the club like this and I take this and I go like that, so I have my maximum angle and I shallow it out, right? So if I do that here I have my 20-degree angle, and now I shallow that out. Now that angle has gotten smaller, right? So that's another thing where it comes from. The last thing where it comes from is momentum. So if I have the club head going in that direction, while my hands start moving in that direction, well, that's going to create that sharper angle. So if I add those three things together, the maximum wrist hinge, right, along with the shallowing of the club, along with momentum, look how tight I can get this angle. See how tight I can get that angle? That's where that lag comes from, all right? So when you're here, you're shallowing out the club. Now, you may be overdoing it and getting right here. If you're trying to get under the elbow plane, if you're doing that too much, you're going to be right here. This is over shallowing, and you may need to go like that. So just try to get it a little bit under and then ease off of it is all you need to do. So we're getting that club shallowed out. And then what we're doing is we're squaring that face so that we can rotate into contact with a square club face. So if we are like this when we're coming down, right? So we've got that cupped wrist and we're coming down. And even if we have the club shallowed out, if we have this face like this, I have to roll this hands over big time to square it up. And if I do that, I'm going to flip, right? So if I have this face square, so if I have my lag here, I got my lag, I'm squaring that face. Now I can turn. Now look where the club face is pointing. It's pointing, if you have my plane here, it would be almost perpendicular to my plane there, that club face. There's going to be very little face rotation into contact. It's going to be mostly just body rotation into the ball. So if you look at it from this angle, I've got my lag here. I'm coming out. I got the club shallowed out. I've got that club face squaring earlier. It's pointing more down to the ground here. From here, I can just rotate into contact with forward shaft lean in a square club face. It's just rotating into contact there. So that's what's going on there. So hopefully that helps. I'm not really sure exactly what you mean. Really, you're setting the wrist at the top, right? So you're getting here, you're in your thumbs up position, and you're shallowing out the club, and you're sharpening that angle, and you've got momentum from the club going in the other direction as you're coming down and pulling the other way. That sharpens that angle, and you are shallowing out this club, and you're squaring that face earlier as you're coming down. That's in the move, and that's going to get you to where you can rotate into contact. The best drill for this is the tennis racket drill. That's the best drill to be working on that. So that's what I'd be working on, is working on that tennis racket drill and getting more comfortable with that. Hopefully that makes sense, Thomas. Maybe I'm not quite answering your question. I don't quite understand exactly what it is, but let me know if you need more clarification on that, or give me some specifics exactly what you mean. But if you want to work on the tennis racket drill, that's 1.3 in the move course. click the house icon. That will take you to the home page. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a list of all the courses. Click on the move, then go to 1.3. All right, so Larry B says, I see conflicting videos with wrist turn. One video explains to turn the left wrist down counterclockwise at the top. The other video says to do the same thing at shaft parallel to target for right-hand golfer. So which one is correct and why? They're both correct. So one is just a drill where both of them are just squaring the face earlier in the swing. So they're both correct. They're just, now you're not, the one that you're talking about where you're coming down to right here, you're not actually in this kind of position, right? You're not actually right here where the club face, that's not what you're actually doing in the swing. It's an exaggeration. What we need to understand is that drills are often exaggerations of what we're trying to do in the swing, right? So we're trying to get the feeling from here, from the top of the swing to here, that we are really turning this handle down and getting it square. So that way we can rotate into contact. It's a feeling that you're having. So they're both correct. They're not conflicting. It's just, they're just two ways of saying the same thing. Turn the handle down to square the face earlier in the swing so that you can rotate and keep forward shaft lean. Gerald A says, address, what should the weight distribution be on each leg? Balance, 50-50. That's what you should be. Every single club with a full swing, 50-50. So Jeff P says, how do you determine the best grip, weak, neutral, or strong that personally works for you? The easiest way to do that is to try them all. That's really, there's no way to know. There's no way for me to know. The best way to do it would be just to try them all. So what I do is I go to both ends of the extreme. I would actually hit some where I would use a crazy weak grip. So typically a weak grip is considered one where you've got the thumb going straight down the shaft, right? The V in the hand here is basically pointing straight up to my chin. That's considered weak. I would actually go more extreme than that. I would go super weak. So I'd have my hands kind of like this, and I would hit some shots and see how I do. Then I would go to a weak, what's considered a normal weak grip. Now I'd hit, 10 shots, 5-10 shots, see how that works. And then I would turn it a little bit more, hit 5-10 shots, see how that feels or what works best for me. And then I would keep going until I have a crazy, extreme, strong grip. So that would be like where I have my thumb on the side of the grip here. So that would look something like this, right? So that'd be a crazy, strong grip there. And I would hit some shots with this grip and see how I do. So I would start out with a crazy weak grip, hit 5 or 10 shots, make about 6 increments between that crazy weak grip to a crazy strong grip and see what works best for you. Odds are it's going to be somewhere in between there, right? You might do a little bit better with a stronger grip and you might do a little bit better with a weaker grip. But I would just choose one where you get the best results and feels the most comfortable for you. So Robert E says, I'm confused about wrist rotation at impact. Every time I try to go it way left. Any comments? That's because you're probably not rotating your body and you're trying to you're rolling the hands over the same way you would in your normal swing. You're not squaring the face earlier and coming down and rotating your body. You're coming down here and trying to rotate the hands down like you normally would, and you're just closing the face more. So you need to go and work on the tennis racket drill. That needs to be happening. You need to get that face squaring up earlier in the swing. The 1.2 from the move, we talk about doing it here, but that's to help you to get you the feeling of getting that to happen as you're coming down. It needs to be you don't want to come down open here and then do that, right? You're coming down and you're getting it to here, right here, right? And then you have to rotate into contact to make that happen, to come into contact with a square club face. So you got to go slow with it. If you can't do it slow, then you can't do it fast. So start out slow. Get it at a slow speed, then pick up the speed. And if you're going too fast and you're hitting the ball left, then ease off that speed a little bit until you're able to get it at a faster speed. So it sounds like you're just turning that handle down at impact instead of squaring it up earlier in the swing and rotating into impact. Because really the sensation is different. Because if you're flipping right? Typically what you're doing is you're rolling the hands over right at impact to square it up. So you're going like this, right? Whereas if you're doing the move and you're squaring the face up earlier, you're doing that back here. You're squaring the face up back here, and really you're just kind of holding that face into contact, right? So what you may be doing, and like I said before, you're either squaring it up back here, but then also rolling the hands over like you normally do right here and flipping and closing the face, or you're doing like what you normally do and you're waiting to square the face until right here, and you're just rolling the hands over even harder just to and you're closing it. So get the face squared up here. The face is already square. You don't need to roll your hands over anymore. It's going to feel more like you're holding that face as you're coming into contact. That's what it's going to feel like. It's going to feel like you're holding the rolling over of the face. So that's what I would try to feel like as you're coming through contact, that you're not rolling the hands over at all. You're squaring it up here, and then you're holding that face through contact. So Robert E. That was on. So best position for radar device, to the side or directly behind. Depends on which one you have. They all have different specifications. So if you're the PRGR, if you have that one, which is the one that we recommend, the easiest way to do it, to use it, is to take your driver. Pretty much all drivers are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood from the end to end. It's going to be around 4 feet, give or take, depending on how long your driver is. If you have a much shorter driver, it might be a little bit less than that. So like if you play a 43-inch driver, it might be from end to end, it might be 45 or 46 inches. This is a 45 and a half inch driver. So from end to end, it's going to be about 4 feet. It's going to be 47, 48 inches, something like that from end to end. Because when you're talking about the length of a driver, it's actually to right here. It's not to right here. Right. So if you take your driver and you place it behind the golf ball, and then take your PRGR and place it right there in line with your target, that's going to be the perfect position every single time. All right. So that's what the PRGR. That's why we like it, because it's very easy to set up. That's part of the reason why we like it. It's very easy to set up. All you got to do is take that club length. It can be an inch this way, an inch that way. It can be a little bit closer, a little bit further away. It's still going to pick it up and give you good readings. There's not going to be a big discrepancy there. Now, the Swing Speed radar is another device that we recommend. It's a little bit cheaper, and it only reads your club head speed, but it's a little bit more finicky with the way that you set it up. It kind of has to be exact and perfect. So that would be set up to the side. So the way that you would set that up is, if here's your ball, you would move it about 8 to 10 inches to the side, and then you got to turn it in about 45 degrees. So if you have it right here, so if this is my Swing Speed radar, it's facing me. Here's my golf ball. My target is toward the camera. I need to move this 8 to 10 inches that way, and then pivot it in and angle it in to where it's 8 to 10 degrees. So if you're looking at it from this point of view, that would be like that, and then pivot it in to where it's 45 degrees. So that way, wherever that device is pointing is catching that club as it's coming in. So if you have it like this and you move it this, 2 feet away, and then angle it in, it's going to be catching the ball or the club, several feet before it's getting to the golf ball. It's going to be a slower speed at that time, or probably it's not going to be the same speed as it is when it reaches the club, right? Or if I take it and I angle it in to where it's facing the golf ball, or it's going to get confused between the club head and the golf ball, and it's going to give you funny numbers. So, and we found that if it's 6 inches or if it's 12 inches away, you get different numbers. So that's why it's just a little bit finicky to work with. So if you're consistent with it and you keep it you keep it that same distance and set up the relationship to the golf ball the same way every single time, you will get consistent numbers from it. But like all of us, we're human. You're going to tee the ball up 3 inches further away, 3 inches in different directions, or even more than that sometimes. I mean, we use these at the clinics, and I see it happen all the time. Somebody will say they got a crazy number, like they got 150 club head speed when it caught the ball, right? Because it had it positioned, or it had the ball too far back, so it got confused and it caught the ball, and it told you what the speed was there. So that's why we don't. It's cheaper. It works just fine. It will give you accurate numbers if you set it up the correct way every single time. But we're human. The PRGR makes it very, very easy. You just set it up behind it. If it's 5 inches that way in any direction, it's still going to give you great numbers every single time. So that's why we recommend that one. If you're interested in the PRGR, you don't have a club head speed device and you're looking for one. If you already have one, then you're good to go. You don't need to buy this one, because every swing speed device that we ever tested does tell you if you are gaining club head speed or not. So I'll go ahead and post this up here. So I'm posting the link to a video that we did on the PRGR. So if you're interested and want to go check that out, feel free to. All right. So Ed D says, should you feel you cover the ball when hitting the driver? And can you talk about the hand path from last parallel to the straight line release? I'm feeling like my hands move pretty far left, i.e. the front of my body on the target side of the ball. Is that right? All right, yeah. So yes, you are covering the ball. All covering the ball basically means, whenever you're talking about that, is that I've heard of people talk about it in basically two ways. One is basically the trail hand or the hands. You feel like the hands are coming in, especially this trail hand. You're coming in and you're covering the ball. If you're someone who flips the club, your hand's going to be like this. The palm of my hand's pointing up toward the target, right? It's pointing more up. Whereas if I'm coming in and I'm getting forward shaft lean and I'm releasing that club out in front, then my hand's going to be more pointed down toward the golf ball, my trail hand, and that's going to be covering the golf ball, right? And that's what we talk about in the pet the grass drill that's in the straight line release course. Sometimes it's also what people refer to as our bodies basically being on top of the golf ball. So we're coming in more like this, right? And we're covering the golf ball. We're staying in our posture. What we see with people who flip and go like this, our upper body is moving away from the golf ball when that's happening. So we're not covering the golf ball. If we're staying in our posture and rotating through contact, right, we're still on top of the golf ball. And that's with the driver. That's with any club. All right. So yes, that you're doing the same thing with the driver. Now, you may not be hitting down into the ball. You're letting that club bottom out and then work up into the golf ball. But you're still covering the golf ball. Now, as far as how your hands are moving, understand that your hands move in a circle around your body, right? So if you're used to coming in at flipping, basically you're used to your hands basically releasing when they're turning the corner, right? So when they're working out to the right and then moving back to the left, your hands, if you're flipping and releasing that club early, that's basically where that release is happening, is when your hands are turning the corner. Whereas if you're releasing this club out in front and your hands are more out in front, then that means that your hands have turned the corner, right? So my hands are moving out to the right, out to the right, out to the right. They're moving toward the target. Now they're moving left of the target, right? So if I'm getting forward shaft lean, I'm getting my hands ahead of the club head, then my hands have to be working in to the left around my body, right? So my hands are working that way now, right? They're working around to the left. So that's exactly the sensation that you should have. It's very different than what maybe you're used to, because if you're used to going like that, but your hands are working around your body now. If you're getting that forward shaft lean, if you're getting the hands out in front, they're working around your body and that club's releasing out in front. And that's what can give you a lot of speed, because your hands move to the left while your club head moves out to the right. That speeds things up. So if that's happening out here, right, if you're releasing the club early, then you're burning that speed out here. You're still going to have the fastest point at the golf ball, but you're not going to have as much speed as if you were coming in and the club was working to the left, or the handle was working to the left as the club head was working to the right. All right. So Larry W says, when I start the downswing, should the weight shift and hip turn pull my hands and arms down, or do I throw the arms down to start the downswing? It's going to be the weight shift and the hips pulling the arms down. So David W says, Q, since your ranges are closed in Illinois, I've only been able to hit almost golf balls. When I think my wrists are working correctly, the ball is going a little left. Is it possible I am too close to the ball? It's possible. I would just video your swing. Basically, if you want to have about a fist between your hands and your thigh. If you have a driver, it can be about a little bit more than that. So because the club's so much longer, you'll be a little bit more upright and reach for it just a little bit. So that's probably about a fist and a half, maybe 2 fists. For a wedge, I'm going to be about a fist. And then for all the other clubs, it's going to be, somewhere in between there. So that's that. If you're standing too close, that would look something like this. If you're with a driver like this, you're standing too close, right? So you want to get a little bit more. So the easiest way to think about it is get a little bit of flex in the knees, get your arms at your side, let them dangle, then push your hip back, right? So stay in balance, keep your weight completely balanced, and keep the pressure completely balanced in your feet. If you feel you're getting on your toes, right, then you're just bending over at the waist, right? If you feel that you're getting in your heels, you're just pushing your butt back, right? So you need to feel completely balanced, like you're pushing your butt back and you're also bending over at the waist. So let your arms kind of hang, right? So I'm completely balanced here. And once my hands get about 4 or 5 inches in front of my thighs, which is a fist is about 5.5 inches, I would say, depending on how big your hand is. So about 5 inches. So once your hands get about 5 inches in front of your thighs, that's where you grab the club. Now, if it's a driver, you can reach out, you can stand a little bit more upright and reach a little bit. If it's an iron, that's right where you want to be. If it's a wedge, you can bend down a little bit more and let your hands dangle a little bit more closer to the ground. But that's really the easiest way to be able to do that. So Russ F says, once I've reached the top of my backswing, do I want to push through my right side or pull through with my left side? Get that good weight shift and pull through with the lead side. Sam K says, ordered the PRGR yesterday, but forgot to ask if you need to put a silver sticker on the ball to get good reading. If so, this unit would be no good on the range, only good inside. No, it does not read a spin rate. So the device that you're thinking of is the FlightScope Mevo. So the FlightScope Mevo does require, in order to get accurate spin numbers, you have to put a little metallic dot on the golf ball, which wouldn't render it useless at a driving range. You can still put stickers on driving range balls. It's just a pain in the neck. But if you don't really care that much about the spin numbers and you're just looking to get your club head speed, your ball speed, things like that, the Mevo is still a great device to be able to use that. Now, it's not my preferable device because it requires you to use a phone app to be able to see the numbers. And to me, it's just, I don't want to have to hit a shot, pull out my phone, look at it, and have to go through that. I'd much rather just hit the shot, look back at the device and see the screen right there. Oh, okay. It's, it was 100 whatever miles per hour or whatever it is. The ball speed, here's the club head speed. It's just so simple, so much easier. It's also a lot less expensive. It's $200 versus $500. So, but it doesn't give you spin rate and it doesn't give you launch angle and things like that, which your Mevo would give you. So, but honestly, I don't think you need those things. I can see how far the ball is launching. And usually with spin, your spin numbers are typically going to be pretty good if you're hitting it solid, right? Spin numbers are usually bad when you don't hit it solid. And usually if the spin is really bad and you hit it solid, you'll actually see the ball balloon up. It's very easy to tell if you have too much spin, right? So it's nice to know I have 3,000 spin on my driver, but it's easy to see, oh, I have too much spin on my driver because my ball does this, right? It's easy to see that. So those things they aren't really that necessary. If you look at, there's been a lot of great players, right, that didn't have this technology. Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, all these guys, they didn't have these devices and they played some pretty darn good golf. And that's because if you just know a little bit about the physics of what's going on, it's very easy to see, okay, the ball started really high very quickly, that I'm probably launching it too high. So I don't need to know the number. I just know I need to lower it to get to where I want to be. So, but with club head speed, a lot of times you don't know I can't swing the club and be like, that was 110 miles per hour. If I know what my club head speed is, or it's just hard to tell. It's a little bit harder to tell how far you're hitting the golf ball is what I'm saying. So having a device tell you if your club head speed is going up or down is really the best benefit for it. So that's why I recommend the PRGR. Very, very simple to use, easy. So Ulrich N says, can we, and if yes, how can we protect when injured, for example, left hand wrist? If you're injured, then I wouldn't recommend swinging a club. It's just going to take rest. If it's not getting better, then you need to go to a doctor. As far as exercises and things to recommend, we do have a fitness course on the website where you can go check out some stretches and things like that. But we aren't fitness experts. If you're looking for golf exercise stuff, I'd recommend going to mytpi.com. So that's mytpi.com. They are basically the leader in the world as far as exercise as it pertains to golf, I would say. So stretching, exercises, whatever it might be, if you're interested in that stuff, that is the mecca for that. So that's where I would recommend going to find that kind of stuff. We aren't experts in that. So the way I look at it is, if I'm looking for the best information to improve my golf game, right, for my golf swing, I'm going to go to a golf instructor to get that. I'm not going to go to a fitness professional to get that. So that's kind of what it comes down to. If I'm looking to improve my fitness for golf, I'm going to go to someone who's a fitness expert that specializes in golf. I think that's what my TPI is. So that's why I recommend going there. I'm just not trained in. I'm TPI certified, which level 1 TPI certified. So what that means is I can give you a physical screening and I can see, okay, maybe we do the 90-90 test, which would be this, and you basically rotate your shoulder this way, and you can only do that. Well, if that's all the further you can go, then that tells me, okay, well, you have a shoulder limitation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and help you use a golf swing that moves around. I understand, if I'm trying to get you to get your elbow more in like this in the golf swing, you may not physically be capable of doing that because you could only go this far. So you may need to fly your elbow out a little bit and really make sure that you bring that in the downswing. And that may be something that we work on. So if you're looking for fitness stuff on our website, long story short, go to the fitness section. There's some stretches in there that you can look at. That with Joe Yoon. Joe Yoon actually has a book. I haven't read it, but it has lots of 5-star reviews on Amazon. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but just search Joe Yoon on Google or on Amazon, and you'll find the book. Lots of 5-star reviews, probably more comprehensive as far as the stretching and fitness goes for golf, if you want to check that out. But if you want to check out our fitness course and the videos with Joe Yoon, just go to the top of the page, click the house icon. That's going to take you to the home page. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a list of all the courses there. And the fitness course is going to be toward the bottom of the screen. All right. So David F. says, FYI, a PRGR rep told me when not hitting a ball, we see that distance closer to 3 feet away is better for the launch monitor. If you are using the launch monitor closer to 4 or 5 feet away, please try to bring the monitor closer and try again. Okay. I didn't know that. So thanks for sharing, David. So that's great information. Yeah, if you're using the PRGR and you're not hitting a golf ball, it sounds like 3 feet away from where you're swinging through, the theoretical impact, it sounds like, would be the best case scenario. I'm not sure why that would be. But yeah, that's probably where you're going to get better readings. But we found a club length behind the golf ball when you're hitting a golf ball is the best, and that's going to be roughly about 4 feet. Thanks for sharing, David. So a couple more questions here, and then we'll wrap it up. So Thomas O says, hi, Q. Hopefully this will make more sense. When I do the move, shallowing the club and starting to square the club face, it feels like my wrists are set to create lag, and they want to release right away. Do I shallow the club and start to square the face first, and then set my wrists while the swing is going down to set the lag position when my left arm is parallel to the ground? So it sounds, if you're getting to this lag position here and you really feel like you want to go like that, that means you're not rotating. So you need to make sure that you're rotating, because basically once you get to this position right here where you've got your lag You've got this club face squared up. You've got that club shallowed out. From here, it should feel mostly just like body rotation to get into impact, right? Because now the face is already square. I don't need to roll the face over and push it through, right? And if I don't rotate, I'm just going to go like that, and it's going to release early. So if you imagine if I'm taking this club and I just stop my arm, right? What does that club want to do? It wants to release. So you need to make sure that you're continuing to move the handle, and that's by rotating your body. Keep rotating the body and moving that handle around your body and opening up, as you're coming into contact. So that's probably what's going on there, is you're just not rotating your body. It's hard to say without seeing your swing, but I would say that that's what it sounds like what's happening. So Ed D says, I'm buying a new 3-wood. In your opinion, do I need to get fit for it or just buy the Ping 410 with a stiff shaft, swing about 105 miles per hour? If you want to know if the 3-wood is the best one for you, then yes, I would recommend getting fit for it. But I mean, odds are you'll probably hit it fine. But if you want to know for sure if it's the best thing for you, then you need to get fit for it. So one more question here says, Semk says, when is the best moment to try to turn your hand in the downswing to complete the move? At the top, middle, before you get to the hitting zone? As early as possible in the downswing. That's when you want to do it. As soon as possible in the downswing. Basically, anywhere from the top of the swing to here is when you need that happening. It can't be happening down here. If it's down here, it's too late. You're already releasing the club. You're already in a bad position. It needs to be happening from the top of the swing. Basically that transition area from the top of the swing to that first part of the downswing where your lead arm is about parallel to the ground. That's where that needs to be happening. And that's going to get you the best results. That's going to be worked on in the tennis racket drill. So if you just work on the tennis racket drill exactly as it's described in the video, then you'll get the proper sensation of what you need to do. All right. So thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Until then, everybody have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you next time.